and welcome to And So Much More. I am your host, Cami Smith, and today we're going to talk about something on the serious side. We are approaching Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and we have many awareness months that we talk about, and so many of them are clinical, and they relate to things that have preventative measures like screenings and living a healthy lifestyle. So this topic is very different in so many ways, but when we want to bring awareness to this, we want to bring in the experts who can speak to the different things that touch sexual assault. And so with us today, we have Lauren McQuillian from our local nonprofit Freedom 424, and I'm going to let you explain a little bit more about what that is, but she is our events and education coordinator. And then I have April Rasmussen. Am I saying that correctly?
It's Rasmussen.
April Rasmussen. And so she is the Forensic Services Director over at Lynchburg General Hospital, but representing really many of our facilities that do have the forensic services represented within. And so first, April, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about the program that you're representing?
I would love to. So again, I represent forensic nursing at Centra Health. Our locations are located in Farmville at the Centra Southside Community Hospital. We are located at the Gretna Medical Center. We have a child advocacy center in Forest, and then like Cami said, we also facilitate forensic exams at Lynchburg General Hospital and Virginia Baptist Hospital. So we have a large footprint within Centra's organization. What forensic nurses see are patients that are victims of violence, and victim of violence includes physical assault such as intimate partner violence, child abuse, and sexual abuse, which is what this awareness month is, a sexual abuse awareness month.
Mm-hmm. So what is your why behind stepping into forensics?
So my why for stepping into forensics is there is a lot of people out there that don't have voices, don't feel like they're being heard when they're really a victim, but to me, they're patients of some type of crime that happens. Our team is their voice, and so we will talk to them and actually sit and listen to what they're saying and what you guys are saying are happening to you. Look for any evidence that we have, whether that's doing a physical evidence recovery kit with a sexual assault, or assessing somebody for strangulation, or evaluating any kind of injuries that you have, bruises, abrasions, lacerations. We document that very thoroughly, and is in a confidential record that is sealed only for the forensic nurses and the investigating agencies to be able to view. And then we'll go to court and help you speak regarding your injuries, talk about the medical treatment that has occurred for you as you're working through your injuries. And then we also provide advocacy agencies and resources for patients that come in to see us, whether it's the community advocates with the Sexual Assault Response Program, Madeline's House in Farmville and Haven and Gretna, or the domestic violence programs through the YWCA, and again, the steps in Madeline's House in Farmville.
Wow. Hearing that first part of what you said about providing a voice to those who maybe don't know how to put things into words on their own, or maybe don't really know how to even cry out on their own. That aligns so directly with Freedom and the work that you all do. And so before we kind of jump into all of that, because I'm getting ahead of myself, Lauren, I want to tell us a little bit about Freedom 424 and then the role that you play there.
Freedom 424 is an anti-human trafficking organization, and we are committed to providing prevention education to people so that they can understand their vulnerabilities, but also providing restorative care for people who have experienced really terrible things. We do that locally and globally, but locally we are beginning to implement our education to parents, to professionals, and even to children in the school system to explain primarily what healthy relationships look like so that they can identify unhealthy relationships before they turn into manipulative trafficking relationships. This is something that we're so passionate about, providing a voice for those who feel that they might be voiceless in, and making sure that the evil of trafficking is ended before it can begin. Because if someone is put in that position, their life is forever changed. It's not something that you simply quickly and easily recover from. It's something that is haunting. Not to say that there's not hope, and not to say that restoration is not beautiful, but with the access to technology and the access that adults have to children and vulnerable people these days, it's so important to get ahead of it. So that is what we're super passionate about.
That's incredible. Both of you are just these powerhouses of advocacy, and I'm so thankful that you're here to talk about this. And there is a connection between sexual assault and forensics. But something, Lauren, that you said before we started filming about why there may be even a bit of a disconnect there between those who come in for sexual assault and maybe those aren't the ones who we're thinking are being trafficked. So I'm going to let you talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. The individual who comes in and says, I've been sexually assaulted, is not often the person who's being trafficked, because that person has agency and has a voice and has a sense of justice that they want to pursue for themselves. The person who is being trafficked has more often than not been manipulated into a state of not even understanding themselves as a victim, but instead thinking that they are either choosing to be in the relationships that they're in or have no hope to get out of them, or are so fearful for their lives that they won't even try. So a lot of times, even though trafficking is sexual assault, these people are not able to show up and say, this is the experience that I'm having. They might show up in the emergency room with, you talked about wounds, strangulation, bruises. What are these unidentifiable injuries that you don't seem to have a great story for? Oh, there's a person here with you, and they're not letting you communicate with your healthcare provider, and they are holding your documentation or your credit card, or they feel very intimidating. That is likely the person who is going to be the trafficked individual, the person who doesn't have the voice to even communicate to their healthcare professional who is safe. Hey, I'm in this situation and I'm stuck. So the statistic is that 1% of human trafficking victims actually identify as victims. And given the fact that there are 40 million, give or take, victims of human trafficking worldwide, that number is enormous, the number of people who don't perceive themselves as victims. So it's to the community to say, I see some weird stuff happening here, and I'm going to use my knowledge of trafficking to advocate for you. And that's how people are able to experience what we would hope is eventually freedom from trafficking.
Wow. And so that is directly connected to these individuals who are coming in with wounds and bruising. And so how does your team know to press in, to start asking questions, to maybe identify that there's something deeper happening here?
Right. So the hospital is actually working on putting together a protocol and a policy for recognizing human trafficking victims. And that is not just for our team. That is going to be distributed across Centra, across the Centra medical group, so the doctor's offices, so that everybody is starting to look at the screening things that Lauren just mentioned that kind of identifies somebody that may not recognize themselves as trafficking victims, but are recognized by medical professionals that perhaps there is something, because many trafficking victims have come into contact with medical multiple times before it's ever been recognized that they've been a trafficked victim. So with that being said, there will be some screening questions that will be used on these patients when they come in. When they're recognized as a potential victim of trafficking, the forensic nurses will come in and talk with them, offer resources for them, to include Freedom 424. We have been very lucky to have a local organization here that is ready and willing to assist in making sure that people are safe once they've been identified, so that we can be involved in, again, the healing process, that they can come forward and move past and actually be a survivor.
Yeah.
And to April's point, medical professionals are the most likely professionals to identify someone else as a victim of trafficking. So they are kind of the front line against the evil that is manipulation.
So it is imperative that anyone who is coming in contact with patients, not just the ER even, has this knowledge of how to identify. And I thought it was so interesting. You'll have to tell me if this statistic is still true, or not even a statistic. Texas is the only state that requires that healthcare professionals have this training. Is that still the case?
I know we've created curriculum specifically by Texas regulations for that reason. So we're hopeful that as more states continue to implement that requirement, that Freedom's curriculum will be able to be dispersed across the country.
Yeah. And that's what I hope. There's so much more that can be done for awareness than our podcast here. Yeah. But I think just having the conversation and hoping that conversations like these come across the right desks, the right people, the right ears, to get some of this policy spread a little bit wider. Because the thought that this could be something that is caught and it's overlooked, not for the sake of not caring, but for the sake of just not knowing what to look for. Yeah. That's devastating. And so thank you guys both for the work that you're doing. What would be something that we can leave everyone who's listening today as they're like, whoa, like what can I do? Like, how do I be a part of this? What can I look for in my community? Because we can all be a part of this. We can all have a voice for someone who maybe doesn't have one for themselves yet.
So for me, the more I've learned about human trafficking, the more I realize I don't know about human trafficking. And, knowing how to make people do so that they do feel comfortable talking to you. This is a hard situation. The patients that come in and present that are being trafficked, even the patients that are not being trafficked but are sexual assault patients that come in, it's a difficult thing to talk about. It's a difficult thing to talk about with somebody you know, much less somebody that's a stranger that's asking you these questions. But you do have a team that cares. You have people that care outside the community and really want to help and offer the resources.
Yeah. And where can they go? Just really practically, if you've experienced sexual assault, or if you are maybe in a situation that you know is getting beyond your own control, where can they go? First from a hospital standpoint, but then from a Freedom standpoint.
From a hospital standpoint, you can go to really any provider, but the emergency room is kind of the catch-all, which is the most convenient place. That's where the forensic nurses will usually see you, even though they can see you in other parts of the hospital. But to come to the emergency room and state that you need help.
Okay. And what about from a Freedom standpoint?
Well, we are offering education at a rate that we've never in the past. We're really leaning into this, and we're making it accessible by not charging. We're having human trafficking 101 classes in the community. We're having parent workshops at different organizations. So although it's so important to know the red flags of trafficking so that you can advocate for the person who is experiencing it and help them find a way out, it's also, and I think even more important, to educate yourself and your people about their vulnerabilities so that they don't become victims of trafficking. Yeah. And that could be attending one of our workshops, which if you go to freedom424.org, you can find information about attending one of our events where we offer education, be it a race or a gala. Pick your poison. Do you like to run or do you like to get dressed up? Come on out. We have information readily accessible with no barriers so that we can make sure that this doesn't continue to happen to people, and parents especially. If you are affiliated with a community organization, a church, if you want us to bring our parent workshop into your group so that it's a 2-hour, I can't give you all the information right now, it's a 2-hour class. If you want in-depth info about how to parent with technology in a safe and effective manner, how to parent for connection so that your child can come to you and say, I sent a nude photo and I'm really embarrassed about it, but now the person who has it is threatening me. Like that, what a difficult conversation to have with a parent that you're not sure can handle it. But if you're having those conversations in advance, they're gonna know that you can handle it and you can help them. So education, be it because we give it to you, or because you seek it out on your own, or because you have it to give to other people.
Yeah. I think the more this is talked about, the more that stigma can be less. And people will maybe have that freedom and that courage to come forward and have these conversations whether it's with a healthcare professional or with just a safe person in your life. And you know what? Sometimes the safest person in your life is a teacher, you know, or I don't even know. It's not always a parent or a grandparent or a loved one. And so as much education we can get out there as possible, but also to know that Centra has the tools to help you, whether it is for a sexual assault situation or if you think that there's something going on and you are in the emergency room for something very different and you need to cry for help, it's a safe place to do so.
And I think it's important for the community to also know that even though this is Lynchburg and a lot of people think, you know, Lynchburg is a sleepy little town, not much is going on, human trafficking is here, guys, and it's increasing every month. We're seeing more and more of it. So just be aware that this is here. It's not something that's happening in the big cities. It's happening right here in the Lynchburg, Farmville, Gretna area.
Yeah.
And if I could add one thing to that, the largest tactic that's employed in the Lynchburg area specifically is the familial tactic, which will blow your mind. If you think that trafficking is kidnapping somebody in a Target parking lot in a white van, you don't understand the familial tactic. That is when there's an individual in your family, parent, step-parent, aunt, uncle, who is trafficking a minor for something of value, who is saying, oh, I have friends that would want to sleep with my 16-year-old niece, and they can come over to my house and then pay me for that. And then that child goes to school the next day as if nothing has happened, but is manifesting behaviorally traumatic circumstances. So trafficking is not what you think it is, especially in Lynchburg. And it's so important that we understand that to be able to get these kids a lot of the time the help that they need.
Yes. So some resources for you all if you're watching today. First, send this to someone who you think will benefit from this information. You can find this on our website. You can find this on our YouTube channel. It's wherever you listen to your podcast. But then also go to freedom424.org and go to centralhealth.com/forensic services. We are literally today sitting down to get some more information on our site to better represent the work that you all are doing. And so I encourage you, don't let this just be something else you listen to on, I don't know, a Tuesday. Lean in and take action and make this something that is a part of your everyday, not just because it's April and it's Sexual Assault Awareness Month, but because it's important. So thank you guys so much for listening, and thank you both for being here. We hope you'll join us next time on And So Much More.